DUNE Messiah. Now, if you Google up Messiah, you'll either find the thriller series or the actual thing that we're looking for. It's a leader or a person who liberates people, the savior liberator of a group of people in Abrahamic religions. Abraham himself was a Messiah to the Jewish people. And basically, that's what this happens. To them, Messiah is Paul Atreides. Paul Atreides goes ahead and does a lot of things in his entire life, which everyone is kind of grateful for, because these people have been great. Also, these nowadays the reviews are great. I mean, let me tell you a review from the Galaxy magazine, the ones who serialized this book before. It's brilliant. It is all that Dune was, and maybe a little more. And this actually works out really well too. This is book 2 in Frank Herbert's magnificent Dune Chronicles. This was published in 1969, and somehow it includes blind people able to see things, like how Neo did when he got blinded, except he saw technology and this guy just saw whatever his son saw, and his son was a newborn infant. Alright, so this had a very bad reviews in its early stages. When it was first published, it was called a disappointment of the year. Here we get Paul Atreides. However, Paul Atreides is still Messiah, but Frank Herbert shows the dark side of Messiah, and everyone hated it. They don't want sure, he was deposed, and a few years later, Richard Nixon was a very good example of what Paul Atreides did in the real world, but people didn't want that those are reality. People wanted just things that weren't real. They wanted people who are great, the heroes like Hercules and Thor, those kinds of people. However, Frank Herbert gave them the dose of reality, and no one wanted that except Frank Herbert. Personally, I think this is a pretty good story too. It's really great, and it does dwell into how much power can corrupt you, and how much power can give you too much responsibility, and that responsibility can technically kill you. Just sometimes it's just not worth it. So it's 12 years afterward. It's 12 years after the event from Dune 1, and people just decided, and Paul Atreides is going and became to reign as emperor. He's an emperor now, and he just goes ahead and literally conquered 95% of the universe. Everywhere in the known universe, except for that one little spot in the universe, is all on his control, because he's controlled spice production. Spice production is important for space travel, and they're expanding their known universe further and further, so it's actually getting easier to go ahead and do all this. Their civilization is way more advanced than ours, and that's actually great too. He grapples with the unintended consequences of having a freeman Messiah, and his jihad has literally led deaths of billions and billions and billions and billions, and he also struggles to control of the Bene Gesserit and the Spacing Guild, and as well as this third player, the Teleox, to the however you read Teleox, however you read this. So those three groups start working together to destabilize his rule, and they go so by creating Duncan Idaho. Duncan Idaho comes back from life, except it's a clone of him, and they changed his mind a little bit so that he basically be the same Duncan Idaho, the childhood mentor of Paul Atreides Muad'Dib. However, here's the difference. When they sing a note or do this vibration thing, his mind would make him go attack and try to kill Paul Atreides Muad'Dib. And this Duncan is actually called Hayat. Hayat himself is actually just weird. He's exactly the same version, and he's having great affiliations with Alia, which is Paul Atreides' sister, and they're having a great time too. And Osime, which is one of Paul's former Fedakin Death Commanders, just reveals to Paul Atreides that there's this plot against him by the Freemen, and they're like, alright, I'll check it, go kill those people. And then he also finds this other person, another Talexio's servant, Bijaz, who's like a reporting machine, to be honest. He can remember every facial expression, everything, every speech, everything. It's like a mentat, except super intelligent and super better than that. Yikes! And then Paul's soldiers attack the conspirators. However, then an atomic bomb called the Stone Burner Why don't they call it a stove burner? It just happens. It just explodes. It's a nuclear weapon, and it's also an atomic weapon too. And it destroys Syria and blinds Paul Atreides. However, just like when Neo got blinded, he could still see Agent Smith. Because apparently his power is wireless, and of course things work out too. Also, he could still see Agent Smith. I mean, I'm not going to show the clip, but it's still kind of weird. I mean, when this guy was blinded, he could still see the rope, the AI system. Ugh. And then Bijaz, who's actually a agent of the Celestia, actually goes ahead and uses that vibration to go ahead and turn Hayat into a frenzy mode and try to kill Paul Atreides Muad'Dib. However, Paul Atreides Muad'Dib can still see because apparently when Chani goes ahead and gives birth and dies in childbirth, unfortunately, it's twins. Paul Muad'Dib, however, is surprised by his boy, which of course is kind of true because he only foresaw the girl. They both have quasi-heteroc powers. They can still see all their ancestors' memories, so I guess they could walk as soon as they're born, and they could still paint as soon as they're born, and yeah. And the son is a total surprise for Paul because he only foresaw the daughter. Anyways, he just goes ahead and treats them like his own anyway, and so calls them his heir. And then the face dancer then threatens the infants, and he's forced to go ahead and agree that Chani must be created into a clone again, because if he doesn't, the kids are dead and Chani would be useless by then. And then the Bijaz approaches Paul and repeats Skidtail's order. However, Hayat turns back into Duncan Idaho because apparently that vibration misfired, and it just turned Duncan Idaho back to his sanity, and he's like, I'm not Hayat, I'm Duncan Idaho. And on Paul's order, Duncan Idaho kills Bijaz. And then, however, now he can't see completely. He's now blind physically and prophetically, unfortunately. And that's about it. Now that Paul chooses to embrace the Fremen tradition of a blind man walking alone in the desert, and he's winning the fealty of the freemen for his children, who will inherit his empire when they're old enough. And we've all seen what child emperors happened. So Paul leaves his sister Alia with romantic relationships with Duncan, and as the regent for the twins. And with that, a lot of things are happening. And boom, boom. Dune Messiah ends. Oh yeah, also one more thing to mention here: the Spacing Guild, the Bene Gesserit, and the other, however you say that, those traders have been all killed by, have been all executed by Alia, like breaking her oath of not harming these traders as Paul Atreides wanted. However, she spares the princess because apparently she is a Bene Gesserit and she renounces the Bene Gesserit way and just goes ahead and says that she'll be dedicated to mentoring the children. And with that, the Bene Gesserit and the Space Guild lose their link to the Atreides line, and the Atreides line still exists, unfortunately, for the Bene Gesserit, Space Guild, and the Solexia. And Paul has escaped deification by just going ahead and walking into the desert a man. And that's it. That's the whole story. So how did this book go ahead and became its good reception? Like its reception. How was its reception? Now, as I've already told you, people hated the book. Like at the beginning, they didn't want their hero to be suddenly turned into a dark figure. It's like they didn't want Luke Skywalker turned into Darth Vader. No, they wanted Luke Skywalker to still be Luke Skywalker. They wanted the white stuff to keep going to be white. They wanted the light force to keep being light force, and not the light force turn into the dark force. That actually works out pretty well too. I mean, Luke Skywalker was seen to keep wearing black, which actually indicates that he's going to the dark side. However, at the end, a bit of white shirt peeks out, and that shows that he was always on the force side, the light side, this entire time. And that works out pretty well because all of these people are darn bad. What they didn't know was that this was a bridging link between the very first Dune book and the Children of Dune. Children of Dune, which is her third book, and I'm going to be I'm reading this right now. It's pretty great. Dune itself, I actually never thought I'd complete this book. I completed this book in 7 hours, and that's actually great too. It's fun. It's great science fiction. It was able to actually foreshadow Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy. Also, it didn't foreshadow John F. Kennedy being assassinated and Robert F. Kennedy being assassinated too, unfortunately. But hey, what they don't know is that it was supposed to be a trilogy. This was linked by this to this. And we see here that now Paul Atreides Muad'Dib, is now great, and his legacy is never compromised too. So I guess I'll have to read Children of Dune to actually see the full extent of this. But I've got to say, Dune Messiah, you're awesome. So that's Frank Herbert for you, and I really hope you guys actually do enjoy these episodes too. So there is something that I've got to tell you, is that I actually enjoyed Dune Messiah. I don't mind that Paul Atreides turned into a bad guy, sort of, and he's still not evil. He's still great, and he thinks he's doing the right thing. However, he eventually does revoke it, and eventually, this Children of Dune will be able to do their own thing. They have their own visions. They basically little versions of Paul Atreides. They're their own Quatsi Haderach. Except they're not Quatsi Haderach, they're two people. And they're pretty much closer. And so I'm guessing that eventually, as soon as I finish this first part of the trilogy, I'll go ahead and read the 6 other 3 books, which are right here. And then, of course, we've got a lot more to talk about. A lot of fan fiction has come out, and Frank Herbert's son, Brian Herbert, who actually hated his dad when he was young, but now loves his dad because he's a big science fiction fan himself, actually wrote a few sequels to these 6 books too. So I guess there's a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He wrote 6 more books about Dune. And that's nice. So I really hope you guys actually do enjoy this episode. I really hope you guys will see the next episode. So until next time, shout out, peace, bye bye. My opinions on this is great. You must read it before you read The Children of Dune. Bye! Wear a helmet.